process of cutting tiny hexagons out of interfacing for some English paper piecing that I'm doing. So if I'm using a white piece of paper or cardstock or even white interfacing, my mat is really old and it's got a lot of scratch marks and things on it. So it's really hard when I scan from and try to edit things on the screen. So let's just scan the mat and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I've got two little tiny scraps of interfacing on my mat, and the hexagons are so tiny I can get quite a few on there, but they're hard to place when you can't see your material. So I've even got my settings, my background on the darkest settings, but I cannot see my two pieces of interfacing there. So I click on edit and all right, I'm gonna zoom in right here, and I put some little blue lines around my pieces of interfacing, but you have to really mess with this, and it's just so slow trying to get around in here and manipulate my pieces with this little stylus, and I get a cramp in my hand and my eyesight is terrible, so I much prefer to work on my computer screen to do this. So let me show you how I do that. So in order to get the image of your mat on your computer to make it easier, go back to your home, and I'm going to go OK, delete all that. I'm going to go to the scan menu and go over to the right, and it says transfer to canvas workspace. And then you're going to put your fabric or whatever scraps you have on the mat and then scan. When it gets finished, it's going to start transferring it. And it's ready to open up in the computer. So when you get to your Brother Canvas workspace, you're going to go File, Import from the cutting machine, Scanned Image. And so I've got my two little pieces here that are really hard to see, but they're even harder to see on the machine itself. If my mat were cleaner, it'd be okay. But the blurred areas where you have the darker dots here and then they blur, that's where I can see the edge of my fabric. And I also used a water-soluble marker to mark the edges of my little pieces of interfacing. So now I can choose a shape, and I want to make this one of those tiny hexagons. So I'm going to maintain the aspect ratio and make that 0.625, because that is what I need for my project. So now I can keep duplicating this and get as many on the little bits of interfacing that I have on the mat, and you can make use of the tiniest scraps, but it's so much easier than doing it on the screen of the ScanNCut. I wish that they would make a gray mat that's already gray, so when I put white things on the mat, that it would show up better when you're trying to scan little scraps of fabric. So I can get quite a few hexagons just on these two little pieces of scrap interfacing that I have. So now I can send this to the machine, and it's going to probably tell me that the image won't go. The image data will not be exported, but that's fine. I'm going to click OK and transfer via the internet, and then pull it up on my machine. I'm going to retrieve data, go to the cloud, And there's my little hexagons ready to go. I have not ever taken my mat out of the machine. I've left it in the whole time so that when I get ready to cut, it's still in the same position. So now all I have to do is click OK and cut. So let's zoom out a little bit, and you'll see that I was able to take these tiny scraps of interfacing, and I've got my little hexagons that you can barely see stuck to the screen, but you can see where the rotary blade cut them all out. So I was able to get several hexagons out of these two tiny scraps of interfacing.